What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back. In today's video we are checking out one of my favorite electric scooters. This right here is called the VARLA Pegasus. This is a scooter that has a top speed of up to 45 kilometers an hour, a range of up to 45 kilometers for one charge. We have a 500 watt motor in the rear wheel and another 500 watt motor in the front wheel. So 1000 watts of power basically. On top of that we have a front and rear suspension, so you also get a comfortable ride. Just before we go any further, let me show you the box and what comes in the box so you can get an idea of whenever you get this, what comes in that box. Alright, so the box is pretty big as you'd expect, and inside the box you're gonna find the scooter, but you do have to do a bit of an installation. So it's gonna take you about 20 minutes to put this together. You basically have to put the handlebars together and the screen on top of that handlebar. In the box you're also gonna find the user manual. There is a big chain so you can chain the scooter to something, for example, so people don't steal it, and you also have a set of replacement brake pads. Now, the scooter itself looks very different than most other scooters available on the market. First of all, it is bigger than most other scooters available on the market, and whenever you're riding on it, you do have a bit of a stance on the road, if I may say that. Not to mention that everybody looks at it, because yes, it does look quite different. As I said earlier, we have a rear and front suspension. This one gets 8-inch tires, but the tires are also much wider than most other scooters out there. Now, personally, I would have preferred to have somewhat bigger tires, but I am happy overall with these ones. We also have a disc brake on the back and a disc brake on the front. And the braking power from this scooter is quite impressive. Now I'm getting to the point where I kind of have to change those brake pads, but the braking power from it is really good. And we do need that braking power because this scooter has a lot of power as well. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a 500 watt motor in the back and a 500 watt motor on the front. So the peak power for these motors is 800 watts, so you get a total of about 1600 watts. So most scooters that I've tried cannot really take me up hills, on most up hills. Well, with this one I haven't had any hill that it cannot take me up to. So a lot of power with this scooter. Alright, so next I'm gonna show you how the scooter goes uphill. I have a pretty steep hill up here, so let's do that. So maximum power, and we are starting to climb. Pretty steep hill around here for sure. We are slowing down a bit, but it's still pulling us up, so quite a lot of power, I'm gonna say. The top speed on it is about 45 kilometers an hour, even though I've actually seen the scooter going close to 50 kilometers an hour. So definitely a lot of power and a lot of speed. Alright, so we are starting with the back of the scooter just so I can show you closer how it looks. So on the back here we have a plastic fender. On top of that fender we have a light. This gets bright enough so you can actually see it in direct sunlight, and this also acts as a brake light. So whenever you're pressing a brake lever, this will brake. Then we have the suspension on the back there, and then we have these two super cool swing arms, if I can call them that. I'm not sure how to call them. But this is basically part of the suspension here, and on the back there we also have the disc brake. The same kind of goes for the front of the scooter. So again, we have the same 8-inch wheel. This is a 3.5-inch wide tires, so the tires are wider than most scooters out there. Then we have the suspension components and the disc brake on the front, and as I mentioned earlier, the braking power from this scooter is quite impressive, even though I would have liked to see a bit of regenerative braking as well, since we have a motor on the front and one on the back, but that's not the case with this one, so you have to rely on those mechanical brakes basically. The battery pack is located at the bottom here, so you basically stand on top of that battery pack whenever you're riding, and here we have a rubber surface, so your feet are not gonna slip. This is also longer and wider than most scooters out there, so whenever you're riding you do get to move your feet a bit, so you have plenty of space whenever you're sitting on this. The charging port is on the right hand side here, and on the left hand side we have the kickstand that you cannot really see now. I have to turn the scooter around. So the kickstand is pretty small, it's made out of metal, and I wish we would have got a somewhat bigger kickstand, something a bit more substantial, because this one is a bit tiny and I had the scooter fall over a couple of times when standing on that kickstand. Not to mention the kickstand is that small that you can't really open it with your foot, so every time I want to open it I have to bend over and get that open. So I wish the kickstand would have been a bit bigger, but I'm sure that I can find a replacement on something a bit bigger, but I haven't looked into that quite yet. On the front here we have the headlight. The headlight is quite bright, so it will light up the path ahead of you at night, and during the day you can kind of see it. I've seen other scooters with more powerful headlights, so this one you can kind of see it during the day. Here we also have the folding mechanism. So to fold this, you basically open this and then you do this, and then you can carry it. Now this scooter weighs about 29.8 kilos, so that's about 66 pounds. So this is a pretty heavy scooter. Actually, this is the heaviest scooter that I got to try up until now. So you're not going to be able to carry this for extended periods of time. You basically fold it so you can put it in the trunk or on the bus or something like that, but it is a very heavy scooter. Moving on to the top here. So here we have the handlebar. The handlebar is nice and wide, so whenever you are riding on this, you don't feel cramped at all. So very nice and wide handlebar. Here we have a couple of buttons. Of course, we have the brake levers. As I mentioned earlier, the braking power from this is quite good. On the right hand side we have the accelerator here, and then we have a screen right in the center here. The screen will show you the speed, how much battery you have left, the power that you are using. You can change a bunch of things on the screen, and you can see the screen in direct sunlight, so it doesn't matter how bright it is outside, you can always see the screen. So you're going to be able to see your speed no matter what. So very nice screen on this particular scooter. There is also a mechanical bell on this side. Here you can actually remove this if you don't want it. I just put it on today for the video, but I don't have it on normally. Alright, so next I want to talk about the battery life from this scooter. So according to the manufacturer, you can get up to 45 kilometers on one charge. Now, in my experience, I can get about 5 kilometers on one charge. You heard that right. But I was talking to customer service for quite a bit. So supposedly the battery pack inside my scooter is defective, and they're going to be replacing that battery pack. It hasn't happened yet because I haven't had time to take this one apart. So I will kind of post some updates in the video's description as things happen. But as of now, the battery in this scooter can only give me about 5 kilometers of range. And I ran out of power so many times that I can't remember. Now, even like that, it still has plenty of power to take me up those hills. And the top speed that I was able to get on it is about 48 kilometers an hour, even though the manufacturer says that the top speed is about 45 kilometers an hour. Okay, so next let's talk a bit about comfort. So with this scooter we get 8-inch solid tires. Now the main difference between a scooter that has solid tires or inflatable tires is the ride comfort, because whenever you go over bumps, if you have inflatable tires, those will kind of make the ride a bit smoother. Well, the ride is a bit harsher with this one, but since we have the rear and front suspension, you don't feel it that bad. But compared to a scooter that has inflatable tires, the ride is a bit more rough, I'm gonna say. But overall still pretty comfortable because of that front and rear suspension. The steering on this one is also a bit stiffer when compared to most other scooters out there. So this one is not as easy to turn left or right, but that makes sense because you have that motor on the front as well. So it kind of gives you this more steady feel whenever you're going faster. So I think that's why the steering is not as light as other scooters that I've tried. Also, we have 3.5-inch tires, so those will give you some more stability as well at higher speeds, because this scooter does go quite fast. So overall, aside from the issue that I'm having with the battery on this scooter, this is one of my all-time favorite scooters, mostly because it's quite comfortable to ride. So you can kind of go over rough terrain and you don't feel it as bad. The suspension is super nice on it, better than most other scooters that I tried. It has a lot of power, so it can take me up any hill. I don't have to push this at all. With most scooters, I do have to push them every so often, but that's not the case with this one. So plenty of power, plenty of speed, comfortable. It's also bigger than most other scooters, and it kind of has a stance on the road, so people can see you easier, cars can see you easier. So if you're looking for a very unique scooter, even though it could have a couple of improvements, like an ignition, because it doesn't have an ignition, basically anyone can turn this on and go with it. So with a couple of exceptions, it is a really good scooter. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.